Hello everyone, this is Livia Caudell, founder of Conscious Wealth Builders, and I have the privilege and utmost honor to be with this amazing, spectacular, world-renowned, business-minded entrepreneur, Mr. Michael Gerber, and you're the author of E-Myth.
The E-Myth and
Yes.
the E-Myth Revisited.
Yes.
Why most small businesses don't work and what to do about it, and 28 others.
Wow. Yeah, you're just an incredible human being. And not only are you a very successful businessman, you have a beautiful heart and a beautiful wife, I must add.
Without a doubt.
So just tell us a little bit about you and kind of your life story before we dig into the other stuff, because I would love to hear more about that.
Well, to me, my life story isn't really very interesting.
Okay.
Essentially, you might say I was born to create. And my entire life has been in search of that holy grail. So what am I here to create? What am I here to create? I think of myself as the wandering Jew, looking for the truth, looking for the truth, looking for the truth, looking for the truth.
So that's what I've been all these years?
Yeah, like that. That's what I've been doing. I was a hippie when there were hippies. I was a beatnik when there were beatniks. I was a saxophone player. I was a framer of houses. I sold encyclopedias. I've done this. I've done that. I've done just about everything until that very rare and exciting moment when my brother-in-law, Ace Remus, said to me, Michael, I'd like you to come with me to visit a small high-tech firm. The CEO of this company was a client of his. And Ace had an advertising agency in Silicon Valley. And he said, and the guy has the most difficult time converting the leads we create for him into sales. Would you meet with him and figure out what's going on? I said, Ace, I don't know anything about high tech. And I certainly don't know anything about business because I wasn't a business guy. Now you understand, I didn't know anything about business. I was certain about it.
Yeah.
But Ace said, look, you know more than you think you do. Just let's see what happens. So I said, fine. So Ace introduces me to Bob. And Bob looks at me. He's in his office. He's sitting behind his desk. And Ace says, look, guys, I'm going to take off for about an hour. Why don't you get to know each other? And with that, Ace takes off. Now I'm sitting with Bob. I don't know anything about business. I don't know anything about Bob. Bob doesn't know anything about me. So Bob says, so Michael, what do you know about my business? I said, nothing, Bob. And he looks a little distraught, looking at his watch. I got an hour with this guy. He doesn't know anything about my business. Well, what do you know about my product? And I said, less than that, Bob. So we got an hour to kill. Let's figure out what's going to happen. That's exactly how all this started.
Wow.
You got to understand, that is exactly how all of this started. So anybody I'm speaking to right now, where everybody says, I had a plan, I was an entrepreneur from birth, and all of that stuff that people say, discount it.
Yeah.
It's all nonsense.
You know, I agree with that so much, and I can't tell you how many true like entrepreneurs share that. They just kind of fell into it almost, like the universe just put the right people in the right place at the right time, and someone drew out of them this skill that they had that they didn't even know really was there to be able to create a business. So it's interesting that you say that.
And that's very, very, very true.
Yeah.
And so all of that preparation, I was a beatnik when there were beatniks, I was hippie when there were hippies, I was a saxophone player, I was this. All of those experiences were coming together in a way that I never would have anticipated.
I love that.
Until I'm sitting with Bob. So Bob is telling me the story of his business, and I'm listening, asking questions, listening, asking questions, and suddenly I begin to completely revise my picture of the truth. See, I said, I don't know anything about business, but then I discovered what I do. What I do know, because I've done it, is that selling is a system. Bob didn't know that. Bob absolutely didn't know that. Bob hired sales engineers, because it was a tech product.
Okay, I got it.
Right? So he was going to sell this with sales engineers, and they were out doing whatever they were doing.
Sure.
Bob didn't know what they were doing. Bob thought that was something sales engineers do. And I realized Bob You got the completely wrong-minded idea about this whole thing.
Yeah.
Selling is a system. And the more I talked to Bob, the more I realized that while I didn't believe I knew anything about business, I did believe that Bob did because he owned one.
Wow.
You know, you make these assumptions.
Yeah, of course.
And suddenly I discovered Bob doesn't know anything about business either. So Bob says to me, well, Michael, you're saying I could hire a kid to sell this if I had a system? And I said, yeah, Bob, that's exactly what I'm saying. He doesn't have to know anything about your product. He doesn't have to know anything about his customer. He doesn't have to know anything about what you do. All he has to do is become a master of the script. And what do you mean, the script? I mean exactly what he says, exactly how he says it, exactly when it's needed to be said, and boom. That's the opportunity.
Yeah.
So Bob says to me, so can you write that script? I said, sure, Bob. Why not? And suddenly, I was hired by Bob. Ace picks me up and he said, what happened? I said, he just hired me. He said, what did he hire you to do? You don't know anything about his business. You don't know anything about his product. And I said, but Ace, that's what I told you. And I discovered I knew something I didn't realize I knew.
Wow, that's so powerful.
And now I'm going to do it with Bob, and then we did it with Jerry, and then we did it with Judy, and then we did it with, and on and on and on and on, and finally Ace said, I don't want to do this anymore. I said, no, I'm going to go do this. So I set about to go out to create my own company to do just that.
Yeah.
To actually create a business development system that could be applied to any small business in the face of this earth, and that started this whole thing.
Wow, that's amazing. I know. And how many books have you sold?
Well, we
today?
sold millions of
Millions,
books.
for sure.
And we published 28.
Incredible.
The first of which was the original E-Myth book,
Yeah.
and that was in 1986. And the second one was the PowerPoint, which is now called the Entrepreneurial Enterprise. The third was the E-Myth Revisited, and on and on and on and on. So we've sold over 8 million books.
That's amazing. Yeah, I just acknowledge you for, again, everything that you've done. You know, you've influenced many people around the world. So you just have done extraordinary work. And we've
Thank
been
you.
talking here today, specifically inside of the conversation of consciousness, seeing how this is a online summit about conscious wealth builders. Really finding your higher purpose and creating a business around that, such that you have that fulfillment, that you're really living your life's mission. Because I feel like we've all been sent here for a mission. And you were sharing some amazing insights into what, you know, conscious and unconscious. So can you share with the viewers, you know, our conversation that we just had, because it was really good.
Well, a guy who had an incubator in Phoenix told me about the book, The Conscious Corporation, and you know about the founder of Whole Foods, et cetera. And I said, well, that's really an interesting title, but unfortunately it's not true. And he said, well, what do you mean by that? I said, well, because I've never met a conscious corporation. Because rarely have I ever met a truly conscious human being. And in fact, I believe we're getting less and less and less conscious all the time. So I would have, if I had been talked to before he published the book, I would have suggested he'd called it the Unconscious Corporation. Because now suddenly we have a conversation to have.
Sure.
What do you mean
By
about the
unconscious.
unconscious corporation? What is consciousness? So in our work with small business owners, that's our field. And by small business owner, I mean tiny, tiny, tiny businesses. The multi-millions of little guys who are, have a chiropractic practice or a repair shop or a lawn mowing business, or you understand, or a little restaurant and so forth and so on. All of those guys, all those folks, all those ladies and gentlemen who are out there sucking wind big time everywhere. I mean,
A lot of people who are watching are probably feeling
big
that.
time, sucking wind big time. I think of them as broken businesses, but in reality, they're not businesses at all. And that's where this whole conversation about consciousness comes in. So in one of my books, E-Myth Mastery, I talk about the 5 essential skills of an evolved human being. The 5 essential skills of a truly evolved entrepreneur. And the first of those is critical to this whole conversation about consciousness.
Yeah.
And that's concentration. So one of the great missing pieces in this whole lush world of technology expanding and on and on and on and on.
Distractions.
And people connecting with people on Facebook and Twitter and on and on and on and on and all of this that's going on. The whole presumption is that people are getting better as all of this is made available to us. And the reality is people aren't getting better, they're becoming dumber.
I can agree with that.
And please don't take this as an insult, it's just effectively the truth. People aren't getting smarter, they're getting dumber. People are becoming more automated, less conscious. And so how does one approach that? Well, I'm suggesting the first essential skill to practice is concentration. Concentration is the ability to be present.
Yes.
To be here now. Right here.
Yeah.
Nowhere else. Not at the camera, not with the audience, not with my wife who's sitting over there watching us, but right here, right now, together and present. So that's the first skill.
Yes.
Now, can one develop that skill? Absolutely. And how does one develop that skill? Well, I'm writing a book about that as well, which is the 5 essential skills of an independent-minded person. So independent-minded person, meaning I am. And the sudden realization that there is no other truth I can possibly relate to other than the one truth that you are aware of and I am aware of, called I am. I am. Not even I am Michael Gerber, just I am. And the minute you begin to experience I am, everything changes. So that's conscious. The second skill is discrimination.
It's really powerful.
The second skill is discrimination, and that's the ability to choose. But you understand, I say the second skill because until I am present, until I am truly conscious of being here, there's no discrimination possible. And discrimination is choosing where to focus my attention. So concentration is attention. Discrimination asks the question, attention on what? And so now we get to discriminate on most important or least important. And the minute we begin to relate to most important and least important, strategic rather than tactical, begin to understand that we have been blessed with an infinite, almost, range of choices. And yet there is no one here to make them. If I'm not here conscious, if I am not here present, if I am not here with concentration and attention, then there's nobody here to make that choice. So the choices are always made for us.
Wow. Yeah.
So in a conscious corporation, we'd be teaching this, wouldn't we?
Yes, absolutely.
The third skill is organization. And that means turning chaos into order. And so if I am a conscious human being, if I am a being here now, if I am creating a world that is here now, then there are a hierarchy of skills that are absolutely critical for that. So concentration, discrimination, organization, chaos into order, everything has its place, everything is in its place. You can see at Disneyland that conscious criteria of organization. Everything has its place, everything is in its place, everything is exactly as it was consciously determined to be for this reason. You suddenly begin to see the logic and the order of all that.
That must be why I love to have things organized.
Yes.
And everything, and it literally creates a space of empowerment, right?
It does.
And that's what you're really pointing to, because it's not just there on accident. It's like, no, I consciously put this here in an organized way. So it's like it was a creation. It wasn't just like the default. Like,
right.
Wow, how did that end up there? No. I know where it's at.
Exactly. It means.
Ooh, that's good. I like that.
It means something.
Yes.
You follow. So these are the 5 essential skills of a enlightened entrepreneur, but the 5 essential skills of everyone. You understand, whether I'm an entrepreneur, whether I'm an engineer, whether I'm a saxophone player, whether I'm a carpet cleaner, whether I'm a human being, then effectively it's critical if we go to work on our lives, not just in our lives, to create our lives in a way that has logic to it. So organization, innovation is the 4th essential skill, and communication is the 5th essential skill. Innovation is what I call the best way skill, continually better and better and better and better. There is no best way. The only one who knows the best way is God. So we're always pursuing the best way, always in pursuit of the best way, whether that be the best way to have a relationship, whether that be the best way to create a company, whether the best way to create a communication, a seminar, a summit, whether it be the best way to do whatever that best way is, we're continually pursuing the best way. And what other would we pursue when we're conscious? And finally, communication, because until that occurs, nothing occurs.
I can't agree with you anymore on that.
And so communication isn't just me speaking to you, it's you speaking to me, it's you responding to what I'm saying, as you're doing right now, as I know people are doing right now, either by shining it on or taking it in, or being in conflict with it, or being in synchronicity with it, or whatever. Communication is always. And so if we understand that communication is always, and communication is a skill, one of the 5 essential skills of being human, we suddenly understand there's the hierarchy of intelligence, the hierarchy of communication, the hierarchy of organization, the hierarchy of innovation, and on and on and on and on. You suddenly have a world view that you can live within that speaks to every single human being. And this is what we've been attempting to do for the past 40 years in the work we do with small business owners. It's not about personal growth in that context.
Sure, yeah.
It's about being human.
So refreshing.
So, what can I tell you?
I know, I feel like I'm speechless. I'm just like, enough said. Right? It's like I feel like some things are just so simple.
Yeah.
Like it's so, that to me, it's like it's simple. And yet we as human beings, and myself included, we make things so complex.
Yeah,
sometimes.
we do. So we created, and over the years we've created a business development process that we built not to perfection, but in search of perfection, but have applied it to many, many, many hundreds of thousands of small companies and young entrepreneurs and old entrepreneurs and small business owners and technicians suffering from an entrepreneurial seizure, people doing it, and it applies to everyone. But really, really critical in our state now, in the work that we're doing today, is to awaken the entrepreneur within every solitary single person we're speaking to, everyone who's listening right now.
I love that.
Because now, as we find ourselves in this economic reality, the world and the economics of it, and the spiritual need for discovering what's true about who we are and what we do, it's absolutely critical that we awaken the creator within.
Oh my gosh.
So
yes.
Walt Disney called them the Imagineer, so Disney Imagineering. The Imagineer, when his Imagineers would go to Walt and say, how about this? Walt would say, we already did that. We don't do at Disney Imagineering what we did. We pursue what we have never done and what has never been done And that's the process we're engaged in. So just imagine that, in fact, disruption in the world occurs because somebody discovered something nobody ever believed was possible or important. And all of the extraordinary things that have occurred. Steve Jobs is an example.
Yeah.
You say, I'm saying there's a Steve Jobs in every single human being on earth. All we got to do is wake her up.
You know, that's really awesome because I do align with that view. I believe that there's a leader within everyone, there's an entrepreneur within everyone, and then there's that whole conversation. I've heard some business people say like, but we need a janitor, we need the bus drivers, we need the grocery clerk. So what's your take on that? I mean, because there's some people, like for instance, I've got a few family members that are just really happy with their 9 to 5.
Yeah.
They just love it. They don't want to run a business.
I got it. Yeah, I got it. And I'm simply saying to each and every one of them, that's stupid. So what can I tell you? I'm just simply saying to every single one of them, that's just stupid.
I'm with
and
you.
It's very, very nice for somebody, but we need janitors, we need people to do that work, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's so demeaning. It's so demeaning.
I kind of felt the same way. I was like...
But you understand, but of course, and we will never be without them.
Yes.
You understand? But that's not our job.
Our job is to empower people to step into their greatness, I feel.
Our job is to aggravate them.
Yeah.
Our job is to aggravate everybody. Just to
wake
piss
up.
everybody off. That's our job.
I feel like I do a lot of that.
Wake up. That's our job. Why? Because suddenly they see something that they've never seen before.
Yes.
It's like suddenly you come around the corner and where was that?
Yeah.
I've come around that corner every day for the past 30 years. Where was that?
Yes.
Where was I?
Yes.
And I'm saying concentration, discrimination, organization, innovation, communication. Let's get started. Let's get started. How? Like this. So there's a way to do everything. And our job is to discover the best way to do everything. And again, and again, and again. And that's what I'm inviting everybody out there to do. I'm just simply saying, wake up. You have no idea who you are.
Wow.
None.
So amazing. So
But
amazing.
we can find out. And that's the game we're here to play.
Yeah.
And it's a practice.
Yes.
My saxophone teacher, when I was 11 years old, we'd moved from New Jersey to California. And I'd been studying the saxophone for a year. And my first saxophone teacher's name was Al Chesner. Mr. Chesner thought I was a natural. And when we decided we were going to move to California, to Anaheim, California, he said, look, I'm going to introduce Michael to my saxophone teacher. He is the best saxophone teacher on the planet. But he doesn't teach kids. He hates kids. He doesn't teach, he hates kids. But I'm going to have you take him to Mr. Johnston anyway and see what happens. So we take the train to California. This is 1948. I was born in 1936. I'm 80. And so we're taking the train to California. We get to California. I go to school the very first day in my suit and a tie and a little white shirt. And all these guys in California, and they're in Levi's and T-shirts. You remember?
Yes.
We're talking about way back then. I've immediately changed
I've seen
clothes.
pictures.
I've immediately changed clothes. Anyway, about a month and a half later, my mom comes to me and says, we'd like to take you up to see Mr. Johnston in Hollywood. Would you like to go? And I said, oh, yeah, cool, wonderful. So we drive up to Hollywood, California, the corner of Melrose and Western. We walk into Merle Johnston's studio, and it was a hovel. I mean, just a freaking hovel. It was like a retail store that had been converted into a hovel. And you walked in the door, and there was a light bulb hanging from the ceiling about halfway in. A light bulb on a chain.
Okay.
I swear, that's the light in the store, the hovel. So we walk to the light. By the light is a armchair, dirty, disreputable, mohair, maroon armchair. And we just stand there, my mom, my dad, and me. Suddenly a voice comes from the back of the room. Be there in a minute. And shortly, about a minute later, this guy walks out of back there. Now this guy, understand, is Merle Johnston. Now I was a tiny guy. I'm a little guy. I'm a little guy right now. If I were to stand up next to a big guy, you'd suddenly see I'm a little guy. Well, Merle Johnston was a little guy too. The only difference was he was about 400 pounds.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah. A little guy with a bright red face. I didn't know where the bright red face came from yet. He walks up to us, said, I'm Merle Johnston. You must be Mikey. You must be Mr. and Mrs. Gerber. Come with me. And he turned around and walked off. So, like, I guess he meant me. So I go and I follow him into his real studio. Now, if the front was a hovel, the real studio's where he lives, I find out. He's got a little bed over there, he's got a little sink over there, has a little toilet back here, he's got a music stand here, and a bunch of other crap. I don't even know what the other crap was. It was just a hovel.
Yeah.
And he looks at me, he says, where's your saxophone? I went back and I got my saxophone. Come back and he says, take it out of the case. I take it out of the case. He puts a book of music, close A, on the music stand and points to this and says, play this. So I start to play this. About a minute and a half goes by. He says, that's enough. Put your horn away. Go back out with your parents. I'll be right out. I do what he says. I go back out. My parents are still standing. They haven't moved. Mom and Dad, they're standing there, still looking.
Yeah.
I walk and I get in the middle again and I turn around. Merle comes out. He says, well, I'll take Mikey. He says, I want you to understand, I don't teach kids. I hate kids.
But I like him.
I don't like him. No. It was obvious he didn't like me at all.
Okay.
He said, but I only teach people who want to become the best saxophone players on earth. That's who I teach. He said, if that's not of interest to you, don't bother me. If that is of interest to you, then let me tell you what the rules of the game are. He said, first of all, you got to practice. You got to practice what I tell you to practice, how I tell you to practice, for how long I tell you to practice. You got to practice. And he said, but you got to practice 3 hours a day. And you got to practice exactly what I tell you. And you got to practice it and practice it and practice it and practice it. Then you come up here on Saturday and I beat you up. That's how it goes. He said, second of all, this is the last time I'll see either of you. And he points to my parents. You don't get to drive Mikey up to his lesson. He's going to have to take a bus. And he takes out this little schedule. And he said, it's actually 3 of them. This one takes you here, that one takes you there, and that one takes you here. And then he goes back in exactly the same way. And if I were you, his parents, I'd check out where those buses are dropping little Mikey off, because I wouldn't have my kid all alone with this saxophone in those places. He said, finally, the last rule. Should you get by all the things I just said, and should little Mikey decide he wants to study with me, he said, from the very first moment, he's going to start to complain. I swear he's going to start to tell you all the things I do to him up here, all the things I don't do, the way I am. He said, it's all true. I don't want to hear from you. This is not between me and you. It's between me and him. So what do you think? The saxophone teacher from hell.
Yeah.
You understand? Right.
I can't wait.
So what do you think? Yeah. What a great thing to do. And I said, yeah, I want to do it. Now, you understand, I was just an aggravator then as I am right now. You understand? I mean, I just piss everybody off. I mean, that's my job. So effectively, he's setting this stage, and I'm loving it. Because you understand, I knew he didn't mean any of it.
Yeah.
Because I already knew parents didn't mean what they say. Adults don't mean what they say. I knew if they said 3 hours a day and I'm going home, I'm not going to be practicing. I don't need to practice 3 hours a day. I'm a natural.
Yeah.
You understand? If it takes some stupid kid 3 hours to study what he's going to teach him, I could do it in 22 minutes. So I knew that, and I knew my parents would never say anything about it. So that first week, I didn't practice 3 hours a day for the 5 days. I practiced whatever I practiced. Got on the bus, went to see Merle Saturday morning. get into the mohair chair. An old guy who was the student before me walks out. I'm saying, why do old guys study the saxophone? It didn't even compute with me. Kids study the saxophone. Old guys don't study the saxophone. Merle calls me in. I go in. I take out my horn, put the music up on the stand, and I start to play. About a minute and a half goes by. He said, stop. Put your horn away. Go back to the chair. I'll be right with you. And he comes out. And he said, that's one. There is no two. What did I tell you last week? I told you I only teach people who want to become the best saxophone players in the world.
Wow.
I told you there's a way that we're going to do that. And that means you're going to practice. You can practice what I tell you to practice, how I tell you to practice, for how long I tell you to practice. You didn't do that. Don't bullshit an old shitter. Go home. Make up your mind. I'll either see you next week or I won't. And candidly, I don't even care. Turned around, went back to his hovel. So now I got a choice. And you might think the choice is, do I practice or don't I? But it wasn't. What I realized the choice was I really serious about wanting to become one of the best saxophone players in the world? Or was I just kidding?
Yes, because it's a decision.
If that, then this. You follow me?
Yeah.
If that, then this. Merle was the greatest teacher I've ever had.
Beautiful.
Stayed with him for years.
Amazing.
Stayed with him for years. Now, I never did become the saxophone player that we thought I was going to become.
But those lessons, those life
But
lessons,
those lessons
were invaluable.
were just because it's true. Every single person I ever speak to who wants to become an entrepreneur, I say exactly the same thing Merle said to me. I only teach people who want to become the best entrepreneurs on the planet. In order to do that, you got to practice.
Wow.
You got to practice what I tell you to practice, for how long I tell you to practice, et cetera, et cetera,
Yeah.
et cetera. Don't do that, forget it.
Yeah. So how do we get started? Let's do it.
the
I want
deal.
to be the best. Do you want to be the best? So how does one get started with that then?
This is really, really, really simple. I want
Okay.
to give you a gift.
Okay.
And the gift is called Zen and the Art of Small Business,
Okay.
a spiritual exercise in economics.
That's so awesome. I love
A spiritual exercise in economics, and it's an audio book.
Okay.
And I'm going to give it to you, and I'm going to give it to every single person out there
Awesome.
who says, I want it.
Beautiful.
All they have to do is to email me
Okay.
personally.
Beautiful.
Gerber at michaelegerber.com. Gerber at michaelegerber.com.
Perfect.
And the book will be coming to you, and you'll hear my voice, and I'll be aggravating you from morning till night
I can't wait.
to understand exactly what it takes to wake up, to concentrate, discriminate, organize, innovate, communicate, to become awake, to become alive, and to create something that has deep, 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 deep meaning.
That's beautiful. I love that.
So thank you for having me here.
Oh my gosh, it's such an honor. Thank you. Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll put the email below so you have that, and then make sure you email, you get your free ebook. And what's kind of the next process? Because I'm kind of left with like, I want to be that best, you know? And do you have a step-by-step protocol to help people? Of course you do,
Do I
right?
have a step-by-step
Do you have like an
protocol?
online?
Of course.
Okay,
the very
good.
first step is the course.
Okay.
And the course is called Beyond the E-Myth, the Evolution of an Enterprise from a Company of One to a Company of 1,000. It's a
Beautiful.
3.5-hour video with me. It's only $295.
Perfect.
And it's the beginning of this process.
That's beautiful.
Because understand, without the course, you'll never truly understand the process. And the process starts with a dream, a vision, a purpose, a mission, a job, a practice, a business, and enterprise. It's the evolution of an enterprise. It's the hierarchy of growth. It's applying the 5 essential skills in your presence to create an organization that's alive, well, and absolutely producing something spectacular.
So amazing. I can't wait to dig it.
So give them the link to that. We'll
Yep.
provide you with the link to
Okay,
that. And then all they have to do is say, sign me up.
That's beautiful. And I'm clear that's what's needed in the world. Thank you again for tuning in to another amazing interview here on the Conscious Wealth Builders Online Summit. And stay tuned to more experts and speakers coming your way. Thank you so much for being
Thank
here.
you. Thank you all.